regalia was on full display, wasn't it? And he has lapped it all up.
President Trump, he's in the UK, and I know what you want to know. You want to know who's in, who's out, and what on earth were they wearing? This is interference. Alex has been down at Windsor, and let's get the serious stuff out the way first, Alex. The honour guard and the Busby hats. I've been wondering about this since I was a boy. They had these huge Busby hats, and they managed to talk to President Trump. Can they actually see anything under these hats?
Yeah, I don't know. And it's amazing that they can even remotely move their chins. I mean, the regalia was on full display, wasn't it? All the tradition, all the heritage, all the costumes, all of the funny protocols, the carriages, the pomp and ceremony. And he has lapped it all up. But of course, that was the plan. The interesting thing, though, Justin, you say that I've been down in Windsor. Exactly. This particular state visit has taken place in the confines of Windsor Castle, when normally this would be in London. You'd have the carriages going along the Mall down to Buckingham Palace, and Donald Trump's been told, this is an upgrade. Oh, Windsor Castle, that was the Queen's favourite. You can go and lay a wreath on her grave, which he's done. And he's been even saying to reporters in America, it's the second state visit. It's unprecedented. This time I'm going to Windsor. And they're going, yeah, the reason they've done that is because they're too scared to invite you to Parliament, because all the Labour MPs are going to boo you. They don't want you to have to go through the streets of London where Sadiq Khan, the mayor, is whipping up a frenzy of anti-Trumpism. And so they've had to sort of do this, package it off and put it away in Windsor. But it is beautiful. When you go there, there's everywhere you look. It's big American flags, big British flags. It's peaceful. It's serene. You've got all of the tents set up for all the broadcasters all around the perimeters of the castle. Everyone's doing their lives. And I spent most of the evening there yesterday. And I can say, Justin, that I did hear some of the loony left protesters, the free Palestine. But there was only about 10 of them. Whereas if that had been in London, there was a huge Stop Trump march, which would have completely eclipsed the whole occasion and frankly embarrassed the country. But I don't know if you saw that an activist group in the UK called Led by Donkeys projected onto the side of Windsor Castle. It's really well rendered, actually, like, hyper 5G video of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah. And you think to yourself, well, come on, surely the person to put on the side of Windsor Castle right now for this visit is Peter Mandelson, the disgraced ex-US ambassador who had to be relieved of his position, creating a huge drama in the United Kingdom because he wasn't just at a party with Jeffrey Epstein one day. Oh, no, he was trying to bust the man out of prison when he was there for sexually assaulting 14-year-old girls. It's been an astonishing week.
Now, Peter Mandelson, of course, the old hands here in Brussels remember him because he was a commissioner. Now, hasn't he been sacked about 15 times now?
Right. The man is basically like the UK's version of Rasputin. He's even called the Prince of Darkness. People always say, well, he's a very capable politician. Well, he's really good. He knows what he's doing. That's why he's going to be so great for this role. But he was a direct appointee from Sir Keir Starmer, or people say Sir Keir Starmer's principal aide, Morgan McSweeney. Keir Starmer had to answer questions in Parliament about this, quite rightly so, because not only is this man knowingly a former friend of Jeffrey Epstein, but like you said, he has been in multiple situations where he's had to be relieved of his position because he's been caught doing interesting deals with interesting people, being on boats and yachts he shouldn't be on. It's not the first time that Mandelson's been attracted by the lavish lifestyle and the promise of parties and fun and money with people really he shouldn't be fraternizing with. And when Starmer was asked about this in Parliament, he said, yes, due process was followed. Yes, the security service had conducted all of their interviews. And then, like his normal modus operandi, said, oh, well, I'm going to wait to see what the evidence says. And then as time goes by and the political pressure builds, oh, more evidence has come to light. Turns out I probably should have to fire Mandelson because he was directly fraternizing with a pedo while the pedo was in prison. But the big question hanging over his leadership now is, why did he make that terrible political judgment? And is this a prime minister who resolutely refuses to take the advice of the intelligence agencies, which we are certain that he has done because they said, we conducted the vetting, we created a dossier saying probably shouldn't appoint this guy, he's an unexploded bomb. And Starmer did it anyway. And that should send a chill down every British citizen's spine. So if you've got a prime minister who's not listening to what your security services are saying, not saying this is dangerous, who's willing to put someone who's like radioactive waste politically into the most sensitive diplomatic position with your key ally at a time when geopolitics is so febrile, then you've got a dangerous prime minister.
Of course. Now, all this, Alex, it's trivial, isn't it? Because what people really want to know is what was the Princess of Wales wearing? Now, did you see that burgundy outfit? Did you? I don't know if you were there when she was drifting across the lawn with it on. Can you actually see anything from the gates of Windsor?
My eyes haven't clapped a sight of her in the flesh, but the newspapers, of course, have been filled with this, and all the detailed description of the coat was designed by this, and it's an in-fashion colour, and the purple represents a mixing of the blue and the red of both of our national flags. But do you know what? I'm afraid, Justin, politics is my jam.
You're not into
not so much. You can tell that looking at me, right?
You're not into outfits, because in the briefing prior to this podcast, I was told that Melania was wearing Dior charcoal wool. I don't even know what that is. What's Dior charcoal wool?
I would assume it's the jacket she wore, which is a nice little tailored peplum number, crafted by Dior, and the colour would have been, I assume, a woolen jacket, and the colour, I think, was charcoal black.
If
that helps decode and demystify for you.
I'm a bit ignorant. Okay, all right, back to politics then, because let's face it, all this kind of UK and the US, two notes in the same chord. You see that one? That was Trump getting poetic. Two notes. But let's face it, there are real differences in policy, aren't there? I mean, how about the Trump clamp down on Antifa? I mean, what's going on? That's number one. Palestine recognition. How about that one? And there are some serious policy differences here, aren't there?
Right. And what's really interesting, of course, is all the pomp and ceremony has happened Tuesday, but mainly yesterday. And it's essentially there to soften him up. It's there to stroke his ego and make him feel special. So Keir Starmer and his wife were not front and centre yesterday. They were kind of on a front row of a seat while ceremonial things took place. They would have been at the big state banquet. But really what they wanted to do is surround Donald Trump with royalty. Make sure that King Charles was there, making him feel special, the tender hand of friendship on the back, the smiles, the way that the royal family in the UK has been used through time immemorial to be sort of a diplomatic lever, to sort of get under the skin, get into the sentiments of a visiting statesman. And then the tough negotiations happen today when Donald Trump is going to go over to Chequers, which is, of course, the Prime Minister's countryside retreat in Buckinghamshire, his sort of second home gifted by the taxpayer. There have been huge tech deals. Microsoft are going to be making a big investment. There's going to be big technology companies setting up in places like Northumberland in the north of England, where at one point we were supposed to have a huge battery farm where we were going to be powering all the servers for these things. And unfortunately, that fell through. It'll be interesting to see how, with the highest energy bills in the world, we managed to muster up enough electricity to run .com, make a Silicon Valley in the north of England. But the biggest thing overshadowing it is the freedom of speech debate, because the big tech companies really care about that. They don't want the government's online safety bill saying you've now got to police your own website at a great cost. Right. You've got to mark your own homework. If you don't do all of these things, you're going to face massive fines. They're very upset about the way the EU is handling this as well. And that's going to be very much on the forefront of the president's mind, I'd imagine. And he's brought a lot of these guys with him over to the United Kingdom to start making these deals and, get a bit of Marshall policy, if you will, in the UK. But it comes at such a critical time when there's been huge criticism over the freedom of speech in the United Kingdom after the arrest of Graham Linehan, a comedy writer at Heathrow Airport with 5 armed police.
I remember that, but hasn't the police come out and said they're in favour of changing the law now? The non-crime interventions will no longer happen, or at least that's the idea. Is that right?
That is what they have said. It's funny, there's been a lot of buck passing on this because the government said, well, the police shouldn't be arresting people for non-crime hate incidents, like putting up a tweet that someone might find offensive. And the police are saying, but you need to get rid of non-crime hate incidents and stop telling us to arrest people for saying things. And there's been a huge amount of buck passing. And then what we've had as well in the wake of the disgusting assassination of Charlie Kirk, where America's grappling with its own free speech issue. You had their Attorney General Pam Bondi turn around yesterday and basically say, well, there's free speech and then there's hate speech. And even on the right in America, who are all about free speech, are going, well, okay, who's deciding what's what then? But there's been J.D. Vance for a long time criticised the United Kingdom. And in the wake of the disgusting killing of Charlie Kirk, we've had plenty of people on the left banging on about fascism, Nazis, racism, divisive language, Sadiq Khan especially, trumping off as he always does, blah, 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 the right wing are evil, we must stop them. And I just don't know how we heal this. I don't know how that those huge divisions that exist politically that we're facing in the UK and they're facing in America somehow get resolved. But I must say, going back to the fact that this took place in Windsor, when I stood there yesterday and I saw the bunting and I saw the massive flags everywhere and the castle lit up, it really did feel like I was inoculated against it. It felt like a really beautiful, positive, safe cocoon. It felt like being right in the womb of the special relationship. So let's see if that's mollified President Trump enough, or if when he does the press conference later on with Sir Keir Starmer and the media are there to ask whatever they want, and when you got Trump in that situation, you just don't know what's going to happen. What I heard the other day from a particularly very senior former member of the Trump administration 1.0 is, yes, there's bonhommery in front of the cameras, but make no mistake, the Trump administration knows what Sir Keir Starmer's about, and they don't like him.
So they're trying to butter him up, but as soon as you get him in front of a journalist, right, this is all going to fall apart, basically, because, what about Palestine recognition? What about, I mean, you can't even mention this subject anymore without getting...
Yeah, and it's a very interesting route that countries such as France and the UK are going down when it comes to Gaza. It's as if they've forgotten that Hamas are the bad guys. It's as if they've suddenly gone, oh, well, we don't know who we're supposed to be on the side of anymore. And America largely has been very unequivocal about the fact that we're going to support Israel. They come out and publicly condemn certain things. There was certainly a public dressing down of Israel using rockets within Qatar to attack Hamas leaders. And this time they didn't seem to get the right bad guys. And then there's, of course, the very public statement from Qatar saying, what have you done? Don't do this. I mean, my understanding actually is Qatar knew, the CIA knew, Israel knew, behind the scenes, it was all like, yeah, go on, go get them, because the CIA pay Qatar to keep Hamas there in Doha, put them in luxury apartments, so they got eyes on. But of course, what is said publicly from Muslim countries on this is very different. But where America is still standing firm, realizing that what Israel is doing is defending Western values and fighting some pretty awful, disgusting characters, for some reason in France and in the UK, and it might have something to do with the big Muslim voting bloc, it might have something to do with all the pro-Palestine protests that have been going on for a couple of years now, they're being lily-livered. But they're not just being lily-livered, they're going further. And if they decide they're going to recognize the state of Palestine, to me, this is directly rewarding Hamas for bloodshed. It's rewarding them for taking hostages. It's rewarding them for October the 7th. The message to terrorists around the world is push hard enough, be steely enough, be vile enough, use people as human shields, allow your land to be torn into pieces because you will not back down, and you'll get what you want.
What I don't actually understand is, even if there is a recognition, this is probably my ignorance, but even if Palestine is recognized, I mean, I can see the long-term benefits for them of that, but I can't see how it would change the situation on the ground, would it?
Right. So this is the big mistake I personally think political leaders keep making. They keep banging on about we need a two-state solution. Israel has its land, the Palestine has their land. That can be called Israel. That can be called Palestine. We'll all sing Kumbaya and we'll live happily ever after. No, because all the people living in Palestine don't want Israel to exist. That's what this is all about. The extremist Islamist terrorists, which really make a pretty significant part of the population of Gaza, right? We're not talking about a few people running around in tunnels with some beards and some AK-47s while the rest of the citizens, like, we don't like these people and we're scared of them. Yes, there will be plenty of citizens of that particular ilk who don't support Hamas and are living in terror, and that is awful, and that should never be condoned. But a lot of people in that neighborhood, a lot of Gazans, despise Israel. They want Israel wiped off the map. So the idea that you can come to a two-state solution is all well and good. I think Israel has been trying to do this for decades now, but the Islamist terrorists who create a ring of fire around the nation of Israel are the ones who are the aggressors. And this is what I'm saying. The West, instead of going, there's only one country in the whole world that is Jewish. And even that country, you have Christians, you have Muslims, you have Arabs, you have gay pride marches, you've got all the freedoms in the world. But there is only one nation in the world that is nominally Jewish. And yet they're prepared to allow people all around that country who despise them, who vocalize from the river to the sea, who want Israel absolutely destroyed, who consider Jews the worst human beings on the planet, they want to appease them instead of protecting the one nation that is nominally Jewish. And this terrifies me that for some reason the Western world seems to have forgotten which side they're on, the side of the good or the side of the evil. Because for me, it's very clear.
No.
Horrible things happen in war. People die. It is disgusting. We all want there to not be war. But we weren't starting this. Hamas started this, and you've got to allow Israel to defend itself. And I just think the Western world are being so weak, so dangerously weak on this.
And another topic that might come up is Russia and that war. I mean, it's kind of gone under the radar, which is a phrase we use here on interference. But whenever anyone focuses on Melania's charcoal black top or whatever, we forget to a certain extent that the war is still going on. And the latest ploy or argument seems to be over sanctions and whether Europe should heed President Trump's call and slap sanctions. I think they call them secondary sanctions, don't they, on countries such as China and India, which basically means, oh, if you buy Russian oil, we will hit you with sanctions. Now, this is a tricky one, isn't it? Because, listen, Europe's not doing well economically. And so if Europe starts slapping 50% sanctions on India and China, I mean, the economy might go tits up, as they say, where you are. And some people say, oh, Trump's doing this in order not to have to do it himself because he's saying, I'll do it if you do it, kind of thing. What's your interpretation of that one?
Well, Trump's actually got the get out of jail free card. And so there's a multifaceted approach that America wants Europe to take on this. Trump said, drill, baby, drill. Trump is making sure that it can be energy self-sufficient and also an energy exporter. And part of the deals that we're going to see take place, I'm sure, is the UK benefiting from getting liquefied natural gas from America. Because at the moment, we're having to buy it from countries who themselves, because we aren't able to properly refine fossil fuel products in the UK, who themselves are buying this fuel from Russia's vast shadow fleet on the high seas. They're buying it cheap from Russia, refining it, and then selling it to us. So a lot of European countries are indirectly funding the Russian war machine. And America said, you can't keep saying, give us weapons, give us money, help fight Russia. Meanwhile, you're indirectly funding Russia. But because Europe's gone down this crazy net zero route, okay? A lot of European countries have done this. In fact, actually, at the outbreak of the war in Ukraine, Germany really didn't want to cancel Nord Stream 2, the big gas pipeline that was designed to go over to Russia. And somebody, I wonder who, actually had to go into the depths of the ocean and blow up Nord Stream 1. Europe is so weak on this. And I believe America is absolutely right. And they're turning around and saying to Britain, you sit on fossil fuels. You've got North Sea gas and oil. Get it out. Use it. Bring your energy prices down. Help your mates in Europe. There's been a huge deal between the US and the UK on nuclear energy. This will be the small modular reactor technology, which is essentially mini pop-up nuclear power stations. Not many countries in the world have that technology or know how to do it. And what America's saying is stop pandering to Russia. Stop being weak. Yes, your economies are in a mess. You've done that to yourself. You've self-flagellated at the altar of climate change. You've walked around with that little gobbling Greta Thunberg like some weird little child oracle. Look at it. Doesn't she know great things? She can see into the future. I mean, it's been pathetic, and it is going to be economic damage if we go down the route of having to cut off these fossil fuel supplies from third countries. But Trump's got a point.
Is Greta still on this flotilla? I've lost track of her. Has she got a GPS on her?
I don't know, actually. I've lost track of that. My favourite thing in the world would be if she actually landed in Gaza. I want that day.
That's where
I'm like, come on,
she was on her way. Of course, one of the main differences between the US and Europe is over in the US, they've got loads of energy. Let's face it, they've got enough. They've got loads of oil and they've got lots of LNG, so much so they can export it. Whereas the problem here in Europe is we haven't got enough. We've got, there's some in the North Sea. There's some, the Norwegians have got a big lump, but that's it, basically. We have to import loads.
Yeah, the jury's out on this one to some degree, because everyone's always said if Britain went and did proper exploratory fracking, Britain would find it sits on beds and beds and beds of methane and the like, hidden underground, and that we could drill as well. But even exploratory fracking is a contentious issue because all the greenies turn around and go, oh, there's going to be earthquakes, when the maximum tremor ever recorded from fracking is the equivalent of a double-decker bus going by. I mean, I'm in central London right now, and I can feel the tube, and I'm on the second floor of an apartment building, and fracking is far, far, far less than that. So the jury's out actually on how much fossil fuel access there is in Europe, how much Britain would be able to get its hands on. People seem to think actually quite a lot. But nuclear is another potential solution. But Germany, of course, closed all of its nuclear power stations. Why? Because the suggestion is among various think tanks and intelligence agencies in Europe, Russian activists managed to infiltrate all the greenie groups, and the greenie groups suddenly started lumping nuclear in the same category as fossil fuels. And so Germany sort of went, oh, this is terrible, nuclear is so terrible, we're going to have to shut it all down. Europe is in a mess of its own making for the past sort of 30, 40 years on this, and extracting itself from this mess is going to be extremely difficult. But as far as I can tell, the US is saying, don't expect us to run to your rescue. We're not going to come over and just keep handing you weapons when you're not doing enough yourselves. And where Trump started off a little bit weak on this, quite a bit weak, and seemed to be taking the side of backing Putin, don't know whether it's strategic or not, it seems like the mood music now in the Oval Office is changing. It seems like he's surrounding himself with people like Marco Rubio, who are saying, you've got to stop Putin, he's a very deeply bad guy, and that Trump also publicly is running out of patience with him because Putin's running rings around him. So I do have a feeling that America is going to do what it can, but it's lost patience with Europe.
Right, you're not well, but we're not going to send soldiers to Ukraine. I mean, that's still not on the drawing board, is it? Let's face it.
I think it'd be unlikely to see actual American boots on the ground in Ukraine fighting the war. But don't forget, Justin, that when Zelensky and Putin first met up, they struck a deal for America to have access to things like rare earths in Ukraine. And those interests, those assets, those resources, which then technically belong to America, would be protected by some form of American security, whether those are mercenaries and private sector security or actually involved US soldiers. I think it's more likely to be the former. So there are many aspects to the way Trump is working this, negotiating this, which is quite clever. And Europe, meanwhile, are sitting there saying, right, what do we need to do? Do we need NATO planes? Do we need an EU army? Do we need our own troops? Eventually, if there is some sort of diplomatic agreement to then go and defend it. My understanding actually is that, Russia hasn't actually said no to the idea of that. Russia just wants to get what it wants to get, which is access to all the coastal routes, and itself it wants to get the sort of gas fields, the oil fields, where all the cool stuff is over in eastern Ukraine. So they're like we've pushed so far, we've got this much, we've seized this territory. They want it. They don't want to give it back.
Right. Okay. Now, what are we going to do? We can't. Hero and zero, Alex. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Surely we can't have President Trump. Hasn't he already been hero at least once or twice? What are we going to do this week?
I think President Trump is still the hero of the hour to some degree, but I think that it's fair to say that the person who really warmed his cockles, who made him delighted, who made him feel so special, who he apparently lip readers said was sort of talking to admiringly, was Princess Kate. Kate just shone yesterday. She looked so elegant. She looked poised. This is a woman who's been battling cancer. Apparently, they wanted to make her front and center of this. Behind the scenes, she's been working so hard with rehearsals on all the gestures, the way to communicate with Trump, because they know that he's got a soft spot for William and Kate. And she was on shining form yesterday. And Donald Trump looked delighted to have been in her presence. And if that is going to help us today to have the hard conversations, she's the unsung hero. She is the sort of wind beneath the wings of the UK states right now. So I think she's our heroine.
Princess Kate and her burgundy outfit, this week's interference hero. 000. What do you say?
Oh, well, so Keir Starmer, the furore over Mandelson, that's really embarrassing. Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, who just makes the country look really crass. The entire Labour Party, the UK government.
Peter Mandelson. Come on, Mandy has to be this week's zero for
Mandelson
getting
is
fired.
Definitely zero. He's gone. He's out of public life. But they say he's plotting revenge.
Revenge?
They say he's going to come back. He knows where the bodies are buried.
Revenge or a comeback? Surely he can't come back again. I don't believe it. Revenge may be, but surely not a comeback.
We've said this so many times, but a bit like Rasputin, until he's found cold with a pickaxe in the front of his skull, I wouldn't write him off. I don't mean that to incite violence. It is a reference to Russian history.
We understand. You have to say that nowadays online, don't you?
Right.
No, but Mandy, come on. Mandy is this week's zero for getting fired yet again, though we look forward to your next attempt at a comeback or revenge even. Revenge best served cold. Thanks a lot, Alex. That was wonderful. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on Interference. Bye-bye.
Bye.